Hello and welcome to another reading wrap up. It is June and it is almost halfway through 2025, which is insane. But let's talk about May. Let's talk about all the books that I read in May. Half of the month, I think, not half, like almost half of the month was spent traveling. And so a lot of reading happened then. And I was mostly reading like new releases and like books that I'd gotten arcs of. And so a lot of new books. And I think that's why mostly every book that I read was an ebook. And there was only one book that I read that was a physical copy. And so, not a lot of progress in reducing my physical TBR, but a lot of good books. So, let's talk about all the books that I read in May. Okay, so first, let me give you guys some statistics. I read a total of 9 books in May, a total of 2,886 pages. My top 3 moods were funny, lighthearted, and emotional. And then mostly medium-paced books. All books were fiction. My top 3 genres were young adult, contemporary, and romance. My average rating was 4.03 stars. And this is what the pages looked like in the month of May. So, as you can see, there were a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of the biggest like arc that you see is because that was like the time I came back from LA. And so it's like the day, like it's literally like the flight and then the next couple of days where I was like so jet lagged I needed to like, I was reading like at night, like I would wake up at midnight and then read till like 7 in the morning and then go to sleep. And so yeah, anyways, that was the statistics. Let's talk about all the books that I read in May. So starting with the first book that I read was called To Steal from Thieves by M.K. Lobb. This is a 2025 release that I got on NetGalley, and so I finished this. I think half of it I finished on the flight, and so I was reading it before I went to LA, and then I ended up finishing it on the flight. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It gave me like the heist vibes that I was expecting from it. And it's like, they're teaming up to go steal the stolen stuff from the museum and like things like that. And it's fantasy and it has magic in it and, romance in it and like all these things. It kind of gave me, like heist vibes. So it reminded me a little bit of Six of Crows, obviously because of the heist vibes, but it also kind of reminded me of A Tempest of Tea, which was fun. Like, I think the era and the heist vibes both were similar in A Tempest of Tea and To Steal from Thieves. So if you liked A Tempest of Tea, I would recommend reading To Steal from Thieves. But yeah, enjoyed the writing, enjoyed the characters, and it was just a fun read. I listened to this also on audiobook while I was reading it, which made it even more fun, I think. And I liked the audiobook, so I would recommend that if you want to check it out. And then I read another book that came out in June, and that is Never Thought I'd End Up Here by Liang. This was also another book that I read on the flight. I started it on the flight, and I think I read like halfway or like 50% of the book on the flight because it's if you've read Anne Liang's books, then you know that they are a fast, bingeable read always. And so this one, I flew through like half the book very quickly on the flight and then read the next half like during my trip. And I remember loving it. And, again, if you've read Anne Liang's romance books, then you know that she always does them so well. And this was just another example of that. Like, I loved, traveling around China with the characters. I loved just the chemistry between the characters was great. The characters themselves and their, like, how fleshed out they were. I enjoyed that. And the writing is so good. The banter is so good. Everything was just so good. So, highly recommend. And yeah, if you're looking for a bingeable YA romance, contemporary romance, I would recommend it. So Then I read another 2025 release, and this was again another book. I think this one's coming out in a couple months actually, maybe August. Yep. So this book is actually coming out on 5th August. It's called Well Actually by Mazey Eddings. I love Mazey Eddings. I love her works. I've read her trilogy that was like A Brush with Love, Lizzie Blake's Best Mistake, and The Plus One, and I loved all of them. I read The Plus One first and I loved it so much, so I ended up going back and reading the other two and enjoyed them as well. But Mazey Eddings is an author whose books I am going to read. And this one just again was so freaking good. I was literally so invested in this. Like I read this during my trip, and I think I finished this on my flight back. But during the trip, even when I had no time, I was trying to read any 10 minutes that I could get. Every morning for breakfast, I would read this while eating breakfast. Like, it was so good, I did not want to stop. The banter is like top level. I've been saying this for a while. I think for the last year, I've been having trouble enjoying reading romance books or like even picking them up. For some reason, I'm just not enjoying it. I'm not in the mood to read romance and stuff. This book changed that for me. Like I started it on a whim and could not stop reading because it was so good, and it was like kind of basically reminding me why I enjoyed romance in the first place and why I enjoyed reading fun banter like books. It was so good. I highly recommend reading it when it comes out because it is so good. It's so good. The main character in this is like an interviewer who has interviews with celebrities where they eat hot dogs together. And he's a podcaster. He's like famous on Instagram and stuff like that. So like celebrity and interviewer. Yeah. If you want to read something like that, highly recommend. But yeah, the romance is really good. The chemistry is off the charts. It's so good. It's so funny. And it was making me laugh out loud. So I highly recommend it. And then, like I said, I finished Well Actually on my flight back to Dubai. And so after that, I started another book. That was another book that came out recently. And that book is called And They Were Roommates by Paige Powers. This was my first book by Paige Powers, and it's definitely not going to be my last because this was so good. I literally had the best time reading this, and this was again like very bingeable, very fast read. I read like I think half of this book on the flight, and then I finished it as soon as I landed. Like that night itself, I like finished it. So I think I read this like in a day because it was so good and I did not want to stop reading it. One, it's set in a boarding school. So personally for me, I already knew I was going to love it because anything set in a boarding school is something I love. Usually every book that I've read, I think that has been set in a boarding school has been great for me. And so, yeah, I think very nostalgic in that way for me. And then also just like, you know, close proximity. They were roommates and like, it's so good. I really enjoyed it. And it's like, yeah, there's like secrets, obviously, since he's a trans boy and he doesn't know if that is something that the school, like this old, old school has, like they don't have any rules about that. So he doesn't know if he's even allowed to be there and stuff. And so he's like hiding that he's a trans boy and stuff. And then ends up becoming roommates with the one guy who knows him from before he transitioned. And just, yeah, there's second chance romance. There's, close proximity. It's, boarding school. It's very fun. It's very good. And I highly recommend it. And yeah, the banter is good. They're funny and just, yeah, highly recommend. After that, I read another book that came out this year, and that's called We Could Be Magic by Marissa Meyer. This is a graphic novel. It kind of had like, it's about this girl who grew up loving this like show or like this franchise basically. And so that franchise has an amusement park, a theme park. And so she goes there to work and like to want to be one of the characters in the amusement park. And yeah, it was a quick read. It kind of reminded me of like Disney in a way, because it's set in a theme park that the main character has loved and like loved the shows in it and has grown up wanting to be one of the characters in it and stuff. And so yeah, it was a fun quick read. I would recommend it. It deals with a lot of topics and the artwork is great. And yeah, I would recommend it if you're looking for a fun, easy read, quick read with great artwork and a great storyline. So yeah. Next, I read Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice by Elle Cosimano. This is the fourth book in the series. If you watched my other wrap-ups in the last couple months, I think the first one that I read in the series was in November or December. So I've been reading the series since then and I am up to date. So I read this fourth one, and then the last book that I read in May was the fifth book, which is the latest that's been out. I think the sixth book is coming out next year. Very excited for that. I can't believe I'm done with the series. It was so good. It's so funny and it made me laugh so much, even though obviously it's a mystery novel. It's a cozy mystery. It's a funny mystery. Yeah. And the audiobook is so good. I listened to all the books on audiobook and highly recommend. The narrator is amazing. Yeah, literally, I think the audiobook did like most of the work for me. Like that's why I loved it so much, because the narration was so good. But yeah, I loved the characters, loved the storyline. It's also so insane to me how, like, I was thinking about it while reading the fifth book, and it was like, how did the author come up with so many things and was able to connect the previous stuff with the now stuff? Like even in the fifth book, when like in the fourth book, like most of the mystery that like started from the first book kind of ends. But then in the fifth book, it's like a kind of a newish mystery, but it's like we were still able to connect the previous stuff with this, and it's just so well done and so good. And yeah, really enjoyed it and highly recommend. Yeah, especially if you're looking for an audiobook, like if you're going to go on a long ride or something and you need an audiobook for the drive or something, I would highly recommend this. I loved listening to this on my commute, and yeah, really good. So those were two other books that I read and finished in May. So that was Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice, which is the fourth book, and Finlay Donovan Digs Her Own Grave, which is the fifth book. So anyways, and then after the fourth book, I read Britt-Marie Was Here, which was the only physical book that I read this month. It was also my book club's book for the month. And what can I say that hasn't already been said? I love his books. I am obsessed with his writing style and just the way his mind works. And I definitely want to read everything he has ever written because they're so good. I read Anxious People, which was my first book by him in like 2021, maybe 2022. Loved it, and then proceeded not to read any of his other works because I was worried that they won't be as good, or that just didn't have time either. And then I ended up getting this at one of the book sales that I went to last year, and yeah, so freaking good. I also had My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologizes, and that I got at a secondhand bookstore. And so I read that first. I read that in April and absolutely loved it. It was so good. And then I didn't know when I started it that it had Britt-Marie as a side character. So I was very glad that I read that first because it was like a prequel to this book. And so now, like, going into this, I already knew Britt-Marie and like what kind of character she was, and like already loved her. And so very glad to have read this. It was so freaking good. If you can see how many tabs I've made. And this is not even all of them. I think I like skipped a few because I didn't want to run out of the green. So yeah, very good, very lighthearted, but like touched my soul kind of, and like I laughed at some points and just was like so emotional, but like in a heartwarming, comforting way. And yeah, it was so good. And I can't wait to read more of his books very, very soon. I'm hoping to read at least like a few more of his works this year. I think maybe it's finally time for me to read Bear Town, but I know it's going to devastate me. So I'm worried, but I'm also wanting to read it. So I probably will. But yeah, highly recommend reading My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologizes first, and then reading this, because I think it'll change the reading experience a lot. Because I spoke to someone and they had read this first and then that one. And when they had read this for the first 50%, like for half the book, they did not like Britt-Marie, and they thought she was annoying. And to me, I didn't have that at all. Like from the get-go, I loved her because I'd read the other book and because I knew how she was and like how she got to Borg, which is like the imaginary city, village, town, whatever in this book. So yeah, highly recommend. It's really, really, really good. So yeah. Britt-Marie Was Here by Fredrik Backman. And then the last book that I read in May was Huda F Wants to Know by Huda Fahmy. And this is again graphic novel. I think this is the third book in the series. You don't have to read the other ones to read this. They're all kind of standalone, but it has like the same characters and it's the same main character, Huda. And so this one is a little bit heavier because it discusses divorce and it discusses heavier topics in that. And so, but like obviously still very funny, still very, just done really, really well. And I flew through it and I really enjoyed it, and highly recommend this, but also just like all her graphic novels because they're all so good. So yeah, this was the last book that I read, and yeah, those were all the books that I read. Just one physical copy, and the rest were all like mostly ebooks that were books that came out or are gonna come out this year, and then some audiobooks. So a lot of reading while moving around kind of. So that's why only one physical book. But yeah, it was a good reading month, and I'm currently also very much in a reading mood in June. So I think there'll be a lot of good reads that I'll be reading this month. I'm already reading like 3 different books right now and really loving them. So I think some good books that I'll be discussing in next month's wrap up. So anyways, that was all for this video. Let me know what your favorite book of May was. For me, it was definitely Britt-Marie Was Here. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.